I'm first up, so that I'll be disturbed by the noise of serving the food and chewing, and then we'll let Adam have the undisturbed quietude of people digesting, I guess. So what we want to talk about this month is absentee voting by mail, and this has been authorized for many years by Virginia. The criteria has gotten a lot less strict, and you can actually apply and get on a list up to a year in advance. And then when the ballots are finished and finalized, they will mail them to you. And then even if you make a request coming up to election date, they will mail it to you up until about 9 days before election day. Then they stop mailing them. Uh, and then the important thing to understand is that this is particularly popular with voters from outside the United States, such as people based overseas in the military or foreign service officers. And the other big group we have are college students where you're attending school at a campus away from Arlington. So we get a lot of absentee ballot requests from, Harvard or Yale or Charlottesville, right? And uh, the they really mail them to everybody that is on the registered voter list. So your your request comes in, and they check you against that list, and then they mail out to the address specified on that list. So in my opinion, the chances of some fictitious person just trying to get a ballot to vote or whatever is very low, because you're already on the list. And then what they do is they mark you as getting received a ballot. When the ballots come back, they mark you on the list again. So it is impossible for you to both vote absentee and vote in person, or vote absentee more than once, because there'll be only one vote cast for every person on the list. Um, the other idea that's very important is that the Registrar of Voters uses the United States Postal Service to actually send out these mailings. So the first mailing, it might be like 20,000 envelopes, and then every business day after that, there'll be maybe 100 more envelopes being sent out. So it's a continuous process, and we rely on the mail to deliver the mail. And in fact, there are regulations that say that political mail like this gets priority and should be put to the front of the room, and so on, the front of the queue. Coming back, you can take your absentee ballot, and either put it in a drop box or mail it back via USPS. And the rule is that the ballots must be postmarked by election day, and then they have to be received on the following Friday. There are other ways that ballots get counted after election day, including voting provisionally on election day and then curing up until Friday. So for example, you don't have your photo ID with you, or there's some other problem. They'll give you a provisional ballot and you can vote, and then they will keep your ballot until it's cured, and you have up until Friday to cure. So regardless of anything else, there's no way that we're going to have official results on election night. It might be close, but it's not the official results. And similarly, you have to have the contested ballots ruled on by the Board of Elections. So there's stuff that happens after election day. Yes.
What if the mail doesn't come in by that Friday?
Then your ballot will not be counted.
Even if it was postmarked.
Yes, that's the rule in Virginia. Other states have written other rules. They're in fact.
It's probably a good idea to be a few days early.
Right, but there are 29 different states that allow you to return your ballot after election day itself. Now, there are two general area of challenges that Donald Trump has addressed. One is the deadline for receipt and federal control over the sending of the ballots and so on. And remember that these are state-run elections where they happen to have federal candidates on the ballot also. So, for example, in November, we'll be voting for county board, we'll be voting for school board, and guess what? We'll also be voting for Congress. Not that you would know that, Adam, but yes, that's right. So the question is, whose law governs this? Okay, is it the federal government or is it the state government? Now, there are some federal laws. One federal law sets the date of the election, and Congress has said it's essentially the Tuesday after the first Monday of the month. Okay, and so that's what the statute says, but it doesn't say, and therefore nobody could receive a ballot after that date. It doesn't say that, but we're trying to make legal arguments one or the other over a statute just says what day the election will be. In March 2025, Trump issued an executive order requiring documentary proof of citizenship for individuals registering in a federal voter form, and also ordering that all absentee mail-in ballots must be received by election day. So that was March of 2025. As I said, there are 29 states that allow for later receipt. And there was a Supreme Court argument on March 23rd of this year challenging a Mississippi law that allows for later receipt. And it is possible, based on the oral argument, that conservative majority might overrule it. We don't know. Yes, right there. And on the second one, which is an executive order that came out on March 31 of this year, there is this second order is really much more intrusive because it says that essentially each state, at least 60 days before the election, will submit the mailing list of the absentee voters. And remember, I'm telling you, you can go up to a week before the election, basically. And that will go to the Department of Homeland Security, who will consult with Social Security Administration. And based on that, they will purge the list. So the list the state has already purged, they will clean a second time. Each envelope has to be marked official election mail and be marked with a intelligent mail barcode to allow you to track the individual envelope. And the executive order prohibits the USPS from delivering mail, an absentee ballot mail, to someone that's not on the DHS approved list. And this could be a real problem. For example, there have been many cases in our society where people get on the Social Security Administration's dead person list and they're still alive. So suppose that happens to you, for whatever reason, bookkeeping error, whatever. Then that in turn will be used by DHS to tell the post office not to send you, a living person, the absentee ballot that you had requested. And you can see how by intruding them into the system, a system that's functioned very smoothly for years could easily get goofed up. Okay? So there have been 2 lawsuits filed in federal district courts challenging this. On May 28th, one federal district court judge refused to enjoin it, but the other one is still pending, and the Supreme Court case is still pending. We're expecting the results to be coming out, any day now. So I just wanted to give that to you as background so you'll understand what people are talking about and what is at stake. And some people feel this is a means of voter suppression because, generally speaking, we want to make it easy to vote. We want to make it easy for people to fix their mistakes. And this goes in the opposite direction. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
They also get them every year, and they're no longer that's not allowed anymore.
It is in Virginia. It is in Virginia. Yes.
They put it in, I'm saying, whatever happens one place, happens in some other places, but right now, they have to request it every year.
Yeah, but the danger with doing that is they'll keep on doing it until you tell them to stop. And suppose someone in Virginia gets on that automatic send list, and then the person moves to Florida and forgets to get it to stop, then that's how you get into these statistics that like Rudy Giuliani was saying about how people were voting in both Virginia and Florida, when in fact you didn't return a ballot in Virginia, you just voted in Florida. Yes, it is. Okay.
Well, and beyond voter suppression, they're gonna just, like, not send them, if they were to take control, they would not send ballots to Democrats, essentially, or perceived Democrats.
Well, but that's the danger, that each envelope is specifically encoded so that it's not only we know the envelope exists, but we know it's going to Paula. Yeah, that's right. But this whole other thing, I'm sure you've heard all of the news this week about the primary in California. California mails to everybody. They mail your ballot to you regardless of whether you're an absentee voter or not. And then you have time to get them returned. And so Trump has stated that he thinks the whole thing's crooked because they don't know the vote totals on election day. And the answer is they're doing their job and they're processing all these ballots. They're millions of ballots, and they've got to check each envelope. I personally go to the registrar of voters and sort of observe as the workers process them, and the same things go
That the Virginia Supreme Court, that's dead, isn't it?
Yes.
Our redistricting.
Yes, the redistricting is dead. Yes. I'm sure you can ask Adam a million questions about that. He's very knowledgeable, probably more knowledgeable than I am. Yes.
There were some states fighting back about giving the voters list to the federal government.
Yes.
Is Virginia one of those?
I can't get Congress to pass the Save America Act. So we're doing it by executive order. Hello. So we're here now with our, and he got hidden. We're here now with our guest of the day, Adam Dunigan, who served in active duty in the Marine Corps in both Afghanistan and Japan and some other places. And then after leaving military service, he went with the Central Intelligence Agency. And he's going to talk to us. He previously talked to us briefly as a candidate for the 7th, and we thought we'd invite him back because now he's a candidate for the 8th district. I give you Adam Dunigan.
Make sure I look like semi-decent here. Yeah. Hello, everybody online. All right. Yeah, that's good. I'm gonna give it 1 minute. They're dropping food on the table here. So.
Thank you.
Go. So, hello, folks. We already kind of started this conversation at the table, but starting over for everybody online. My name is Adam Dunigan. I started out in the Marine Corps when I was a kid. I enlisted when I was 18. I went on to join the Central Intelligence Agency, where I worked undercover as a case officer. I entered politics about 4.5 months ago when I announced my campaign, 5 months ago now. When I announced my campaign 3 weeks after resigning from CIA because I couldn't sit on the sidelines doing overseas assignments while Rome burned back home. So I wanted to come home. I wanted to change things. And I was looking at the math problem as a proud American, as a veteran, and as a taxpayer and voter right alongside everybody. I was looking at the math problem we face ahead of 2026 and 2028. And I don't see how we can solve that problem with our current representation. It's not a knock on Congressman Byron. I respect the hell out of his service. I really have a deep appreciation for some of the ways that he has served the community here, and I bristle whenever any of my other competitors in this race get negative or attack Congressman Byron for it. He's not the problem in Congress, but he is representative of the problem in the minds of every voter that we need to attract and retain ahead of 2026 and ahead of 2028. It's not fair to him, but it is true. And I think one thing that Democrats have struggled to do over the last 10, 12 years is confront reality in time to make a decision that reflects the needs of reality and the people that they're supposed to serve. That's what I'm trying to change. I'm not gonna, I'll spare you the rest of the campaign speech. My big focus in this room right here, especially because I've been here before with y'all, is like to answer questions. Essentially, I see my math and why I blew up my life to come into politics as rather important. I would say that I'm in an existential crisis about like what happens to this country if we fail to obtain power meaningfully in the next 2 to 4 years. I don't know intuitively how you cannot see the need for change, even at the level here, and the potential that that change would offer. So if you don't see it, if you're still considering to vote for incumbents in this cycle, not just here, but around the country, if that's your mindset, I want to know why. And I want to challenge my own assumptions on that. So I'll leave it open for questions.
I'll do the first question. And again, we do thank you for joining us here. One of the things that really concerns me a lot is since the Moral Land Grant Act was passed in 1863, there's been a very elaborate and deep partnership between higher education and the federal government. And I see that being really torn up and re-examined right now under the current Trump administration, much more so than it was during the first Trump administration. So I would like to know what you think of higher education in America, where you see it going, what you think the federal government can do to sort of contribute to that.
2 prongs on that one. So I also respect higher education. I did attend Harvard University on my GI Bill after leaving the Marine Corps and while working at CIA. So I attended one of the universities primarily targeted by the Trump administration. I know a lot of people still from the Kennedy School and up and down the educational hierarchy that are suffering the consequences of this every day. So step 1 is protecting from encroachment, higher education, or the encroachment from political ideology into higher education. You want to promote the dialectic of ideas, but that cannot come at the expense of or should not be motivated by a persecutory complex on the part of the chief executive of the United States government. That's just not a way that the republic was ever supposed to function. I think there's a lot of legislative options that we can take to enshrine some sort of objectivity in education. I think there's a way that you can turn rhetoric from the Republicans against them on this. The party that claimed to be about small government and states' rights seems to be about massive government everywhere all the time. I think we can use some of the points that they've made against them to turn the conversation, even at the end of a Trump 2 presidency where major legislative victories probably aren't possible for Democrats. I think you can make lots of rhetorical advances and start shifting the narrative back toward giving autonomy back to states, back to educational institutions in those states, and more autonomy and resources to state educational organizations or state educational functions of state governments, essentially. Virginia, there's something we can all be proud of, and I do have to tip my hat to the Virginia state government on this, is that Virginia has been really good in the absence of the Department of Education, the detonation of the DOE. Virginia has stepped in, and Virginia is being used as a model for educational systems for other states along the East Coast right now. A lot of the ways that we're stepping up on promoting STEM, Verge, the STEM and tech pipelines, a lot of the industry credentialing programs that we have in Virginia, they're being studied by other states as they stand up their own equivalents to functions the DOE, the national DOE used to serve. I think there's a lot of room to push forward on that. But yeah, my ethos, my motto on this is, yeah, get the government out of your universities, out of your bedroom, out of your schools, everything.
Other questions from the audience, please?
See, I have a problem, and that is that when somebody leaves Congress, they take a their successor, and everybody jumps on board because they think it's like, I'm not gonna say what everybody thinks, but it appears that you're disrespecting and unappreciative of the outgoing person who's given all their life to this service. And they pick somebody, oh, I'm gonna pick Steve, I'm leaving, but Steve is the greatest, pick Steve.
Yeah.
And then everybody says, yeah, Steve, but you're, I don't really want Steve. Oh, no, but you make, and you counter that.
You counter,
did it right here.
you counter that with term limits. I mean, I think that the statement inherent to that you just made, like the sub-statement is essentially, they've been there their whole lives and they're leaving. Nobody should be in the legislature their whole lives. That's not what the legislature was envisioned to be. We have 2-year terms in the legislature specifically to be responsive to changes in the electorate, and it's just not. And the reason for that is because there are no term limits. There are no consequences for legislative failure once you're in the legislature. We have a 20% approval rating for Congress and a 90% re-election rating for incumbents. That math doesn't make any rational sense, right? It's because once you get in, you have the backing of party funding. You have the backing of all of the political donors. You have the dark money and PACs and super PACs that swirl around even good men like Congressman Don Byron. And you have a political system that always will default to convenience and money. You break that by having term limits. You break that by putting a timeline, a sense of urgency behind the way somebody governs. Because without that sense of urgency, they shall govern the same way they always have. And when their successors come up and they are anointed by the political pipelines, you're right. People do get behind that because of the social pressure, even within rooms like this. I think you can break that, or you can break the power, what's the word I'm looking for here? You can break the influence of that process by shortening the time that incumbents have to build that equity that they then try to pass off on successors.
What kind of timeline are you suggesting?
I think the House, I make no claim for what a term limit on the Senate or the Supreme Court or anything like that would look like. I don't have an omnibus idea of term limits generally, but for the House, if 8 years is good enough for president, then 8 years should be good enough for a congressman. I don't see a reason to have it longer or shorter than that. If there's plenty of academic research that they've suggested having 3-year terms, term limited to 2, so that'd be 6, and would line up with Senate. I don't know. I really don't. If you have opinions on this, I'm happy to take them forward.
I'm not I'm not 100% opposed. I am concerned about the idea because experience also counts. And 2-year term, one 2-year term is very short.
Yep.
And by the time you're done with that, you hopefully have figured out how everything works and are starting to make progress. How much you can accomplish your first term, maybe, but it's probably not that much.
Yeah.
So, 3 terms, 6 years, I'm not 100% sure what we are throwing out with the backwater.
I agree, but I would also say that argument is self-reinforcing. It's kind of circular logic because the people who tell you that experience matters are the people with the most experience.
No, I'm telling you,
but
experience matters.
I'm saying that argument is championed by.
I do have a certain amount of experience.
Yeah, I'm not
because
saying that.
I'm not young anymore,
What?
but I have, I worked back in my young days in the Texas legislature. It was a different entity than don't judge me. But we did some really good things. I worked for a great, at that point, Democratic representative. We still had them.
In Texas, my God.
It used to happen, but, and he had a ton of experience and was, really, really effective back in the day. I don't want to throw away that. I'm not saying that I would not, I'm not saying I would be opposed to some kind of term limits, but I am highly cautious.
Yeah.
highly skeptical.
Also, the whole way that the system works now is of course the seniority
Right.
system.
Yeah.
And seems 4 years, I mean, 4 terms sounds okay, but I think 5 or 6, 10 or 12.
Could be, yeah.
We'll get rid of the, the people that have been there for 30, 40 years.
Yes.
Kind of the real problem.
Yeah.
So, maybe there could be a compromise there.
I would say like the academic research that I've done on this for my own personal, because like I feel like the gut solution to this, and it's what people want, like outside of rooms like this, like everybody out there agrees that there should be some kind of term limits. It's very
I don't think
uncontroversial.
everybody agrees on anything.
Well, that's fair. No, are you familiar with the 80% legislation, proposed 80%? There's an omnibus package that's been put together by a couple of progressive think tanks. It's like 80% of Americans all agree essentially on this one issue. And so they put that together as a legislative package that legislators like me coming in for their first term could theoretically put on the floor. It's like drafted, written, ready to go. I don't know if I agree with every single one of those or see how it could get passed in the current political climate, but this is one of them. If you walk down the breakfast bar here at the restaurant, I guarantee you, like if you ask, should Congress have term limits? Most people at that bar are going to say yes, just knee jerk. Now, that's a lot of low information, gut reaction voters, so I tried to refine my own opinion on this by doing the academic research. Academic research still kind of supports it. And I don't know, I think you could reduce the risk of throwing out the advantages of experience by shortening the timeline of what experience means within it. Like if the legislative process is so confusing that it takes years to figure out, if you don't have as many years to figure it out, work shall truncate to the point where it can still happen within that timeline. So like you're incentivizing better behavior on government by making it on a shorter timeline. And if that doesn't work, I would love to live in a country where we can change our minds occasionally. If this were to go forward and we were to see some like massive losses in competence in Congress, which I don't think there's a lot to lose right now. Yeah, I would be, as a legislator, if you vote me in, like I would be willing to change my mind on this. Like show me the data, show me what happens, test the hypothesis, and make a decision as a result of that. The idea of permanent legislation is also killing this country too. We never change our minds. One of the reasons a lot of people are probably so nervous about voting for somebody like me is because, well, we already have Congressman Byron, he's good. We don't know this kid. So if he gets in there, he's going to be there for another 20, 30 years, and we have to deal with all of it. No, you don't. You can vote me out in 2 years. That's what we're supposed to do. It's just we have to kill that mindset in ourselves, and I think term limits is a big part of it.
But the argument against term limits typically is that it makes the legislators more captive of the professional staff.
True. Yeah, I don't have a counter for that one. I think it's already captive as is. I don't know how much you're trading on those, but you're right. What you really have to do in that.
Professional staff isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Well, it depends on who, right? Professional staff.
So, switching gears a little bit.
No, let's talk about
This is a wacky question, but it'll be easy. As a first-time candidate, what was the strangest thing or the most unexpected thing that you ran across in running? Because I thought I knew how to run for office, and this thing that I have to do now is the weirdest thing that no normal person would ever do.
some of the illogic of it all.
Yeah,
Well, I would say
you ran into that you didn't expect.
the most surprising person that I ever ran into is sitting at the table with y'all today. So, Anna Ralty, we met each other by accident, and I won't put you on the spot, Ann, but like her background is amazing. She cares, and she got behind my thing, and I take it as a huge personal compliment. I did not. When this happened, I didn't know how to like accept that kind of kindness, that generosity of time, spirit, and resources, and I learned a lot from that experience. And just who Ann is. Yes, you guys should ask after this. I won't talk about that.
A particular person.
Oh yes, yeah.
Comes up and says, "I can help you, and this is what I can do."
Yeah, it's the validation that you get. Like I just kind of vibe this out. Like I spent a long time, most of my life overseas or doing military stuff. And my policy platform comes from the heart. Yeah, I refined my opinions through academic research and turned it into something that is, a governing platform, but like that was not a linear process for me. So the first time somebody actually came up and told me that, like, I believe in you, I want to see you get there. If you don't get there, I will be disappointed. Like the weight that puts on you, that you carry for the rest of the thing. Yeah, it's a big deal to me. And then the illogical things, the most surprising things was petition signatures. It sounds really dumb, but you need to get 1,000 signatures of voters to get on the ballot. That's really hard. 1,000 people is a lot of people. And I remember, and some of y'all might have seen me down in Alexandria, I would go to the farmer's market with a couple of my guys, set up a little table, do this thing, and you would have people come by, and it's the petition signature is not an endorsement, it's just to help get somebody on the ballot, right?
Yeah.
I would have people come by the booth and see Adam Dunigan, Democrat for Congress, and they'd come up and they'd want to talk politics. And they'd sit there for 15, 20 minutes engaging on these issues with passion, intensity, and investment, clear investment, right? And then you'd ask them to sign their name to help you get on the ballot. And like, oh no, I'm kind of more of an independent. Well, that doesn't really, you know, like there's a fundamental misalignment between how people think even they themselves are operating or interacting with their own democracy. They don't quite get it because nobody is out there explaining it in a way that they can hear it right now. Or they're so beaten down by the news cycle or events of the last 10 years that they've disengaged, but they still care. And you can still light that spark for some people. And I think I did it when I was out there. But yeah, it really hurt my feelings a few times when 15, 20 minutes of conversation and they just walk away from you. That's rough. Yeah. Sorry, Steve.
What was your background? When you were at Harvard, were you at Kennedy?
No. I was in the extension school. So I was doing the professional program through when I was still working at CIA. So it's like only a partial residency requirement.
What were you studying?
International relations.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in the Marines, what was your study? Were you just a grunt or were you?
No, I was a mechanic. I was a mechanic on F-18s for a while, and then when I was in Afghanistan, I tapped out to special projects, and that's how I got a business card from somebody at CIA, and that's the rest of my life. I followed down that way.
So I want to talk a little bit about, like where you grow up and,
Sure.
high school and all that.
Oh yeah. So I was born in Australia. Fun fact. And then no, the Republican breakfast is over there. No, so I was born in Australia. My dad was yeah. Grew up in Los Angeles from age like 4 to 17-ish, and then joined the Marine Corps at 18. And since 18, I really haven't lived in the same place for longer than 2 or 3 years.
So you never watched Spencer Pratt on TV?
No, and I'm very, very glad that I'm not in Los Angeles politics. I have a group chat with my friends back in LA that are really proud of me for running. And so they were really, really worried about Spencer Pratt. So you should have seen the celebration when he went down on the list. Yeah. But yeah, no, so I moved to Virginia in 2014. I've been a resident taxpayer here for a while now. But a lot of that time was spent overseas doing undercover stuff for CIA. So I would always come home. Virginia was where I got to like reacclimate and re-Americanize, which I appreciated. One of my favorite stories about this area since I moved to it is Saigon Noodles. I put some stuff out on my social media. If you ever been to Saigon Noodle Grill over there in Roslyn, owner's name's Jogan. He's great. He recognized me because I would always come in because my apartment's so close over there. I would always come in, and then I started looking really stressed out because of the campaign. And we hadn't really talked before. He just like knew who I was. So he was like, "Hey man, are you okay? What's going on? You seem stressed." I'm like, "Oh, I'm running for office actually." He's like, "Oh." And then he pulled up one of my Instagram things. He's like, "I've been looking for you. I wanted to talk to you." His apparently, so I was friends with a Vietnamese diplomat a long time ago. But apparently his uncle and Joey's family back in Vietnam are very close. So he had heard about some crazy American kid running for office out here. I don't know, just a cool little connection.
Well, I'm glad you're running because where I live in Clinton, and only 10% of the people are over 65.
Yeah.
Not well over that, so if you're less than
You're 27 on the back.
Well, I don't want to be anymore. I'm smarter now, right? We all are. But anyway, and yet we don't have a conversation.
Yeah.
This is in the middle. With only 10%, that's like nobody. That's why it's,
Well, this is I always make the point, and this isn't campaign speak. It's like my actual human beliefs. Like I don't begrudge Congressman Beyer for doing what he's doing at that age and how he's done it. He's done a really good job. I do begrudge the fact that we cannot get the voters that we need to get durable power for Democrats, for sanity in this country, with somebody like Congressman Beyer sitting in that seat. Think about every kid who's graduating college right now, graduating university right now. I was just at George Mason giving a little TED talk. I talked to them. they themselves, if they're not already pretty high engaged voters, angry about some Democratic failures anyway and looking to mete out some punishment to the Democratic Party, they are low information voters that can't find a job, and they're going to look up and they're going to see an old dude with hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're never going to vote for him, and they might not ever vote again if we miss the window. That's just the math. It sucks. I wish this were not the case, but it just is true. And if you want to retain those voters, if you want to bring some of the kids back from the lunatics on the right side, if you want to move the Overton window back to sanity, you're going to need a candidate like me. It can't be an activist, which is not fair, but nobody, like the centrists and the center right are never going to come to the left for an activist coded candidate. It's never going to happen. It can't be somebody who's out there for ego or ambition, and it can't be somebody who comes from wealth. It has to be somebody who's relatively authentic, comes from a background that people find interesting, if nothing else, and probably reflects their life experiences more closely than anything we currently have on offer. And that's not just in the 8th district, that's everywhere. It is the math problem that I'm trying to solve here. It's the math problem that a lot of my friends who are other candidates who are now friends are also trying to solve in their districts. There's a whole new version of the Democratic Party that's here to govern and govern well, I think in alignment with everything everybody in this room wants. We just have to get out of our own way and bite the bullet and do what's necessary, just like we were willing to do on the referendum. It's the same thing.
Well, let me turn more toward the substance of the campaign.
I don't have that, Steve. I'm just all vibes,
And you know, I understand you have a lot of interesting ideas about the Iraq War. I meant the Iran War. I didn't have a chance to ask you about it the last time because the war hadn't happened then. So what are your thoughts on the Iran War and what the solution is from this point on?
The Iran War, at this point, has laid bare all of the illogic inherent to the U.S. government and our military policy. First of all, the war should never happen. Second of all, the way that the war was prosecuted was so incompetent as to be laughable if it didn't result in 15 Americans coming back in caskets with flags on them. Right? Like I want to make jokes about the trolling that the Iranian government did of Trump online, the little Lego videos, right? I want to.
That was incredible.
They were delightful, but people were dying, including 157 girls at a girls' school. Why did those kids die? Because of a targeting package put together by the Pentagon using untested and unregulated AI systems. Because that's just the way that these guys govern. There's no pre-planning, there's no follow-through, there's no expertise, and anybody brave enough to challenge them on it is thrown out of the room. That's why the Israelis were able to convince Trump, after trying to convince every single president that has served since Carter, I think, or since Reagan. They have pitched that exact ops plan to every single president. He was just the one that fell for it because there is no seriousness in government anymore. So, all that to say, right now, as the war sits, we just exposed our entire playbook to Russia and China. China was sitting off the coast with a big spy ship, collecting all the information that they could have ever wanted on our battle plans, our signals intelligence, on our logistics chains. They got everything they could have wanted. The Russians got their oil unembargoed after decimating the population in Ukraine, which they continue to do to this day. They got their oil unembargoed. They get to sell again, probably to Trump, probably straight into Trump's pockets in the backroom deal, because you know what, the negotiators of the ceasefire and the lead up to the war, who were they? It was Trump's son-in-law. It was Kushner and Witkoff, fundamentally unqualified to be in the rooms. We are letting real estate ghouls make calls that result in American citizens coming back in caskets with American flags on them. It's disgusting, and I wanted to stop. If there's something more specific you want, Bob, I'm happy to.
No, well, but the problem that I have as a lawyer revolves around the War Powers Act, which, you know, probably less nerdy people in America care more about the things you just said, which are very important. But fundamentally, either the Congress has the power of the purse and is driving the school bus, or the president is just driving the school bus all by himself. And do you have any ideas on that?
Yeah, well, I think the repealing of presidential military authorization is more justified now than it ever has been. I support it. It's been supported. It was a very popular position within the Democratic Party before, even when we had power. We just didn't do it. Like the idea of limiting presidential authority to initiate military action in excess of 30 days, like that's been proposed for a long time. We just never did it because we ossified in our legal system in the way that we approach power. Like I said before, if something passes, it becomes permanent. And it shouldn't be. Even repeal timelines are overrun or extended or whatever. There's no faith in the American public that anything can change at all anymore. When it applies to this specifically, yeah, we should be limiting the president's authority to initiate action over 30 days. I'm super in favor of that. I wish we'd done it sooner when we had the chance, when we actually had power. But God damn it, if we don't miss every single window to actually wield power when Democrats have it. I'm tired of that. That's why I'm running.
Well, thank you for your answer. Does anyone else have some important questions to ask here?
Oh, I know, I remember.
Yes, ma'am.
Something.
Ready?
You mentioned captive to private interests through money.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you taking contributions from, and if the answer is yes, it doesn't mean I would vote for you, but I'm just curious. Are you?
No corporate PAC money, no special interest money. All of the money that I have raised in this campaign, which has been significant for a first-time candidate, I encourage you guys to go check out the FTC filings. All of that is individual donors. I am not taking any PAC money. I am not taking any special interest money. I am staying away from APAC because of the stain of the influence and the online conversation about APAC, whatever your feelings are. If you're trying to make sure that the voters have trust in their elected officials, I am keeping my finance 100% clean on the way in from day one of this campaign, from day one of when I take office until the last day that I leave office, which would be no more than 8 years after I get in.
What about money from public utilities? Many people have claimed that the Virginia legislature is a fully owned subsidiary of Dominion.
Yeah, I haven't been offered, so I can say that I'm rejecting Dominion Energy money, but they haven't come to me yet. No, and I would not take that either. I do think it might be somewhat vibey. It might be more like, you know, appearance and substance. A lot of the sloganeering around campaign finance. Like for example, I don't think Congressman Beyer is like morally corrupt because he takes this kind of dirty money. But I do have a lot of critique for how that money is used and where it flows in the party. The idea, and Congressman Beyer, I think he would agree if you were here, like the reason that he engages in that kind of finance is because those corporate PACs are the same corporations that are actually here amongst us, right? Leidos, Northrop, everybody has here. So they want to engage in politics just like anybody else. They're following the path of least resistance to do so. It's fine. And I believe personally that I have faith, I guess, that Congressman Beyer is a moral man making decisions based on his morality and not the interest exclusively of donors. However, that engagement with dirty money is killing our credibility in the eyes of every disaffected and young voter, just like I was saying before. We need to be 3 times as good as their expectations to even bring them back to their table. That's why I'm doing things my way. Now, sorry, let me bring this one home. The other thing is the justification that a lot of senior party leaders in the Democratic Party, Congressman Beyer included, the justification they use for engaging in this really, really ugly, dirty part of political finance is that we need the ammunition to get Democrats elected and take back power, right? So the money collected here. One of the big positive things that people bring up about Congressman Beyer is that he helps the Democratic Party so much. You know, the money that he raises, he puts into the National Party, and that's very true. And I would ask you, what are the results of that? Do we have power right now? Maybe the system is broken, and maybe we are lionizing the wrong things about the people within that system. And maybe until we step away from it, we're going to keep seeing the tree instead of the forest.
I would, one observation, I think, if you become more successful, those people would be coming to you with their uninterested contribution. But what I was really interested in with your background in particular, as a chemist who programmed 50 years, I worry about AI on the battlefield, making decisions, you know, that the Anthropic people seem to be the only companies that have any conscience. And the question is, how are we going to control that, prevent it from having, you know, algorithms decide who's an enemy and who gets murdered? or who starts a nuclear war.
Yep, I just gave a 30-minute TED talk on this, like on stage with the whole TED logo behind me. I was just there doing this on this exact topic. So the Russians, for anybody that's not tracking this, the Russians are already putting autonomous lethal capability on the battlefield, essentially loading up an FPV drone with a $200 charge, a camera, facial recognition, and saying, kill any male 18 to 25 and fine. That's really scary. Really, really, really scary. And this is when I was at Harvard, I wrote my part of my capstone thesis on this. I track this very closely. What you need in terms of regulations is the same kind of framework that we have for counter-proliferation and nuclear weapons, for example. You need a lot of the same framework to guide development. You have monitoring treaties between, let's say, us and China, which is mutually beneficial for us and China as we develop new systems. It's going to be tricky given the Chinese, let's say, loose rules with intellectual property, but it is still an absolute necessity. In the same way that the Soviets and us back in the day, we had the START treaties and arms reduction. It's good for everybody because the consequences of letting AI go unregulated for very long is unsustainable, especially here in Virginia where data centers are killing us, being put in the communities that are suffering the most. Not just resource consumption, not just job displacement, but I would say the fraying of the moral fabric, the moral identity of America. Because when it comes to data centers, and you can look this up, I just did an interview with Al Jazeera. When it comes to data centers, especially in rural Virginia, where they're starting to pop up now more and more down by Culpeper, et cetera. What you're seeing communities that can't afford the basics for themselves, and they are living in the shadow of a system that they know doesn't care about. Right now, that's AI, but that's how they feel about the government too. And unless we give them back some validation, unless we give them something to believe in, and unless we protect these communities from more encroachment by a profit-driven industry that has already told us that they're training their data, we are subsidizing our own job destruction later on. Unless we protect them from that, we shall not be able to call ourselves like moral actors in that sphere.
And as bad as AI is today, I've gone to some quantum computing seminars over at the University of Maryland. And when that kicks in with the AI, I think that's going to be a real quantum leap into potential data. I mean, with a lot of power, a lot of good things can come of it, but like any tool, you have to know how it's being used, you have to control it eventually.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of fundamental changes coming up in the near future, right?
But those two together, I think, quantum computing and AI.
I think about that. This is just me. I find this interesting, but with quantum computing coming up, like cryptography, being a CIA guy, right? Yeah. Cryptography is broken at that point. When you have that much computing power that can be applied anywhere, there's no such thing as an unbreakable code. Yeah, so it's gonna fundamentally redefine like what privacy means, what work means, and how we interact with each other. I don't think it's gonna be overnight. I don't see like AGI, Skynet coming online or anything.
No. But it's
slow approaching.
When it comes, probably within 5-10 years, like that combination. Yeah.
But it's incumbent on Congress to come up with legal frameworks.
Sure.
But they won't even regulate social media.
So some of the I put this out there. I can send you guys my actual. We have an entire like data policy analysis group for my campaign, which has some really heavy hitters. I don't know if you guys know this, but Anthropic subdivision of Defined.ai. Defined AI is a multi-billion-dollar company out there. Their CEO, Daniela Braga, lives in McLean, lives in the district. She's on my advisory council for how to regulate AI. And she is one of
Good or bad?
It's good.
If she's working for this entity.
No, the Anthropic team, the ones that are actually moral. They're the ones that bailed on the Department of Defense once they.
Moralish. I mean, I'm not sure I trust any of them. I know we sat next to the Pope, but I'm not sure.
Pope has some interesting comments on this.
It's like being a Democrat. Sometimes you have to support the lesser of evil.
Wow,
That's the best you can do.
No, I think it is good talking about professional staff. Like if I came in there going la 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 to anybody who knows anything about the field, probably not great, right? Yeah. But what I mean, when I brought that up, what I meant to say is she is out there saying like they're calling for regulation. Ethical actors within the space are calling for regulation because the lack of regulation, the Wild Wild West, and the dominance of the Sam Altmans and the Elon Musk.
Yeah.
They are running roughshod over smaller operations that want to do ethical development of this technology for useful implementation in human beings' lives, giving people back dignity through technology. they cannot operate, that you can't put capital behind something before knowing where your guardrails are. So there's a lot of people that would be in this space that are inhibited from entering it by the lack of regulation. So you even have people in the AI space calling for regulation, just like you have millionaires and billionaires calling for higher wealth taxes because they know it's the moral thing. Just like you have insert here industry, the smart people who are still at their core moral operators in their sectors, they want this stuff. And I think there's a lot of ground to be gained on this because it is bipartisan. So it would be a focus of my first term.
Taxing the wealth.
Yes, do it.
You
Yep.
mentioned it.
Yes, do it. Yep.
Do it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Fine.
Yeah.
Although, you know, it does control that.
Are you talking about higher tax rates for upper income brackets? Or are you talking about a taxation on wealth, current wealth itself?
Yeah, I think the recent actions by Mayor Mamdani up in New York is a good example of like how you can bridge the gap between people's ire and economic disparity, inequality in this country, and a functional narrative, right? So the idea was that New York was going to collapse as a result of the imposition of the get-a-tear tax, right? I'm not saying I'm calling for get-a-tear tax down here, but I am saying that like New York didn't collapse. There has been no movement of needle since the proposal of legislation or the implementation of 100 days in. We could argue that we need a longer timeline to make a good assessment, but I don't think so. I think there's more margin in the extreme wealth brackets of the US to put some resources behind programs that actually help people at the lower brackets. I'm not talking about income redistribution or fully socializing or anything like that, but I am saying that we have more margin than we're using. The system can take that stress. We're not going to see like flight out of country as a result of that, nor do I think we need to pass like a bunch of like entrapment type legislation to keep wealth here if we were to do that. A 1, 2 to 3% adjustment. You know what 3% adjustment is in this country in terms of tax collection? All taxes paid by people making less than $50,000. That makes up less than 3% of the federal taxation collected. I think if you were to propose it to America's extreme wealthy elite, they might bite the bullet and hook people up under 50,000, but nobody's having a conversation because we don't have the social context to have it. Because you don't have anybody in Congress that can talk across both sides from the position of a progressive. That's me.
I presume you would be on the side of trying to restore some voting rights for people of color, like the Lewis voting rights
Oh, yeah.
bill.
Yep. I mean, there's nothing controversial about it. The backslide in rights and access for all communities, but especially communities of color. Hell yeah, we need
But the
to.
racist Robert Court is non-political. Isn't that what he said?
Well, a better question to ask is, where do you stand on the currently pending constitutional amendment to the Virginia Constitution on restoration of voting rights for convicted felons?
I'm in favor, 100%. I think at a certain point, we have to rip the Band-Aid off and acknowledge that suffrage in all its forms should be encouraged. And just because somebody committed a felony, if they did their time, if we as a society decided what the punishment for that crime is, and they did it, and they came out and they have completed the penance that we dictate for them as felons, I see no reason to deny them vote. I think there could be carve-outs for certain kinds of crimes, maybe certain moral crimes that are unforgivable. But, you know, just because some kid held up a liquor store when he was 15, I don't think a 45-year-old man should not be able to vote.
Yes.
I was gonna say, the thing with that, yeah, we worked very, very hard to get that passed. And then they put in a thing that if you owe fines or owe anything, and that just eliminated a whole bunch of people.
I'm vaguely aware of this. I don't know the background on it, but yes, I know Florida has played games with their.
Well, that was an easy game to play. You haven't done your time. It's not just your physical time in prison. You owe any kinds of fines, and so you slap a fine on somebody, you put them in jail. They've been in jail now or prison. How in the world can they pay that back?
Okay, but you're going to focus on that. You also have to focus on what Trump has been doing, giving pardons to
Oh,
felons
definitely,
who
definitely,
owe millions of dollars in
Definitely.
victim restitution.
definitely, definitely,
Yeah, this is. I mean, it's absurd.
definitely. Good point, Rob.
Because they give them.
We only were able to shout down the slush fund, the January 6th slush fund, right? We were only able to shout that down because it was so egregious. But that same,
And it's not out yet. I mean,
exactly, it's not really dead, right? And this is exactly where I was going with this. Yeah.
This egg has not been put in the dark. Bob, I think, asked this in his question, and I missed the sort of yes, no part of it. So in talking about wealth type taxes, would you work to change so that, well, people making money off of income, not off of income, off of investments, are also, that gain is also taxed?
Yeah, so I think the capital gains tax, which has been talked about since like Obama's first term, when it had like a lot of momentum behind it. Bernie popularized it again, and it had a lot more momentum, and then we saw what happened to Bernie. I think we do have to probably confront the investor class and the extractive nature of wealth in that class. I don't know exactly the best way to do it. I don't think a flat capital gains tax, as proposed before, is necessarily the best solution. But there's a lot more creative solutions that are available to us now.
I think what she was referring to was the carried interest exception to capital gains.
I'm not sure exactly what I'm referring to.
The other thing that Elizabeth Warren and a few other people have been talking about, a wealth tax. So suppose you happen to be blessed enough to own, $1 billion of investment, and you don't buy or sell any of it. You don't realize any gains, not even capital gains.
So you're talking about stacks of cash in a room. Yeah.
Yes, like Scrooge McDuck.
Yeah.
Right. So the question is, do you tax the current balance in the bank account rather than the inflows or outflows? Well,
I don't.
The trouble with that, I'll prejudice your answer.
Bob, are you a lawyer perchance?
is that if you read the Constitution, taxation of the wealth as opposed to the income is questionable, because when we passed the amendment, we only passed it to authorize an income tax.
Yep.
But you can answer the question.
No, I mean, the answer is yes. Like my human answer, not political, not legislatively oriented. My human answer is yes. I think it's offensive that you can have people freezing to death on an Arlington bus stop right next to a $2 million home that's unoccupied, which is exactly what happened about 2 months ago, right? I think it's morally offensive that we live in a country with $1 trillion budget for the military, while people can't afford insulin, and people are losing fingers and toes because they can't treat their diseases. We can do a lot better in this country than we are doing, and I do think if somebody has $1 billion in a room and they're not putting in for their community, and that $1 billion doesn't move in any which way towards anybody, that is a moral failure on that person that the government. I don't know the best way to correct for it, but I wish there were, and I wish we could see better outcomes for the people that need it most.
And all they do is take out a loan against that money and never pay anything.
We can do a lot better, and I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, and this is probably like my steeping period when I get into Congress of like figuring out what is feasible and how best can we bring the law towards the morality that we seem to have gotten away from in this country. I don't know the exact ways I'm going to do it. I know what my intuition is, and I think my intuition is moral and good and true, and I wish the government reflected that more, so I'm gonna figure out how to get there.
Could that be done by legislation, or would that be an amendment?
It would have to be a constitutional amendment based on case law that ruled that prior income taxes were unconstitutional before the amendment. Yes, go ahead.
I think it'd be very popular.
New question.
It'd be nice to pass
Please
it
go
out.
ahead.
I was just thinking about the fact that Dr. King in his so-called I Have a Dream speech, and he talked about the blank check.
Sorry,
And
the
the blank
blank check. Gotcha.
Actually, sort of the uncashed check.
well beyond cash check.
Return for lack of funds.
The biggest issue for African Americans in this country is reparation.
We talked
In
about this last
all areas of people activity. I don't care if it's education, I don't care if it's, income or entertainment, like we're trying to shut down for the NAACP, this whole big sports thing that went on. And it's set up, as far as I'm concerned, all the gambling that goes on. But anyway, reparations for African Americans in this country, which is the foundation upon which capitalism seemingly exists, the greed of it anyway, because of the free labor vote for 100 years. And the reason why Congressman Fire, I know that he voted for HR 40. as a congressman. And I know Congressman Booker has introduced HR 40, the bill for reparations. Senator Booker, because we have to have both houses, but as a new progressive young man talking about all of this capital gains and everything,
Yes, ma'am.
what is your philosophy about that?
Yeah, I'm in favor. I'd make the same vote as Congressman Byer did. It's not controversial. First time that we talked about this, remember a few months ago when you asked me? I don't know what the exact economics behind a reparations package in this country would even look like. I think you can look at a bunch of European economies, several places that I've lived in the past that seem to have managed to correct some of the economic injustice done to the Black community in their countries. It's at a smaller scale, and ours would be much more complicated in implementation across the 50 states. But yeah, it's possible. We know it's possible. We can see the results in other countries that have done it better than we have as a result. So yes, I would make the same call that Congressman Byer would on that all day. I don't know exactly what the loop looks like, but
the UN told this country that it was the most egregious crime against nature, and of course, the current administration didn't like the word used, crime against humanity, and particularly Black people, who are in essence the majority of people on the planet. But anyway, I have a problem with us as a government. We talk about the word democracy, but we talk about the word representative democracy, then we talk about socialism and communism and all of this crap, but it's really about the greed of money on this planet and exploitation. And if we don't have that as our fundamental basis for understanding how to have governance of humanity in a humane way, which this whole administration, in a sense, and I need to say whole because I know that there are some, even Black Republicans, who resent the fact that they voted for this criminal. I mean, he has all of and we still allow this to happen. But anyway, I'm just concerned about us as voters, how we're going to deal with our own morals and our own sense of humanity, because that fundamentally is what we're dealing with. Whether we talk about starting wars and saying Iran has an atomic bomb, we never talk about peace, we never talk about the ambassadors. We always usurp the fundamental thing that hopefully some of us are dealing with. I think we believe
talking
in
about the greed.
empathy.
Yeah, the
I
greed
think we
and the
believe that-
nine-president.
I'm going to go with him because I'm not hearing enough from the younger, and I have two sons. They're your age, but they're very, very vulnerable in this society.
It's so not to push back, but it's so interesting because I hear this all the time that like we are all, I am too, tired of like the greed of society driving decisions rather than human dignity, right? And then your response to it is to go vote for the 100 millionaire. It's just insane to me. Like we as a society kind of broke our brains on this because we're not even seeing the mismatch in our own priority. I would say if you want to start confronting that problem, that's what put me in politics in the first place. Like I said, it's not fair to Congressman Byer that the perception of being wealthy and in his position and his age is associating him with the kind of greed that we see, the naked corruption out of the Trump administration, but it is in the minds of younger voters. That's what I'm trying to fix. And to get there, sorry, Bob, to get there, I would say you probably need candidates that are willing to put in a personal wealth ethics plan before they ever get out there, right? So first thing on my platform, if you go look at my website right now, I am committing to voluntary term limits. I am committing to putting all of my assets in a blind trust. I am committed to never trading stocks in office, no matter if it's legislated or not. I am also committed to donating 50% of any income I make past my salary, speaking for you or whatever, back to the district, to free clinics, veteran services, anything in the community that needs it. Is that going to solve the problem? No. That's a drop in the bucket budgetarily of what we need, especially for things like restorative justice. But it is a step in the right direction morally in the heart of this country. And at least one of 435 seats, you can already have somebody willing to do that. That's me. And it's not Congressman Byer.
Well, on that note, I think we ought to sort of wrap this up. Would you repeat for us what your website URL is and And when is the primary? The primary is in August.
Yes, yeah. So Adam Dunigan, August 4th. Early voting opens June 19th. So get out there and go do the thing. Early vote for your boy. And then the website address is adam4congress.com.
Right.
So the new number 4.
Yeah, I couldn't afford the one with the actual 3 letters. It's too expensive. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Also, we need funding, so grassroots campaign, so any
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. And again, this is a chicken and egg situation. What comes first, the passion or the funding? But I won't answer that question.
In this case, it's a passion, I guarantee you.
Democracy is private, all privatization of public wealth. That's all I'm
Okay,
gonna say.
but you and I can have a debate for the next 10 hours.
Oh.
And we have in the past.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you guys. I
us.
appreciate y'all for letting me talk. Thank you.
And the many